Thank you very much. Introductions took up enough time. Coach has got another appointment. Thank you all for coming. I want to just invite all of you to, as Coach begins with a few thoughts, he's agreed, this is a special day, to answer questions from all of you. And the mic is open. Come on over in the first few minutes here and ask your question, fire away, and Coach would be happy to answer it. I hope he'd be happy to answer it. He wasn't happy when he saw those basketball hoops up, not down. And before I introduce Coach, I want to you heard the long list of achievements. I would like to introduce his two proudest achievements. His son Jim and his daughter Nan are here today. Would you give them a nice round of applause? They're in the back. You can stand up. Come on. Come on. So without any further ado, please start coming on up, and we'll form a little line here, and you can ask your question to Coach Wooden. But Coach, I want to ask you, maybe we can start it out when you get past your hellos. The pyramid of success is so close. Can you hear all right, by the way? Can't hear this? You can't hear.
I hear you talking. I don't know what you're saying, but...
You're not the first one that told me that. I want you to talk a little about your pyramid of success, which you taught to all of your teams, including the championship teams, where it started and how you developed it and why. And then while he's talking, come on up and form a line. Before you do, can you hear questions all right in this mic? Good, we're all set. So how did that all start, Coach?
What's that?
Mike, how did the pyramid of success start? And I think the mic is in front of you. Good.
What do you want me to do?
Well, you can talk a little about the pyramid of success.
Oh, I'll be happy to, yes.
He loves to pull my leg. My right leg is 5 inches longer since working with him.
I really didn't know for sure. I'd hid behind the curtain, and I couldn't hear very well, and Steve very well. At my age, I don't need... But Steve put this in front of me, and I didn't know what it was. But he did say, Steve James is a journalist and television producer. He is the co-author with John Wooden on a number of books and a video. He's also written In the Zone, Optimal Performance in Business as in Sports, and Winning Ugly, Mental Warfare in Tennis, written with Tennis Pro, and some other things. I'm not going to say any more about him. That's enough. That's enough.
We couldn't hear you. Could you repeat that?
Well, he did want me to give you a little bit about the origin of the pyramid of success. When I was began my teaching career, I found out that parents of the youngsters in my English classes, I taught English always prior to coming to UCLA, seemed to be unhappy if their youngsters didn't receive an A or a B, and they would make the youngster or the teacher feel that they had failed if they received only a C. Now, C, of course, is the average grade, and I noticed that most parents considered the neighbor's children as average. And if the neighbor's children got a C, that was all right. It's probably appropriate, if maybe a little too high for the neighbor's children, but for their own, they were very happy. And I didn't have any children of school age at that time, so I didn't understand. Later on, when Nan and Jim, that you met back there, got in school, and I understood that teachers didn't seem to understand them as well as I did. But anyway, I wanted to come up with something that would help me become a better teacher and give the youngsters under my supervision something to which to aspire, other than just a higher mark in the classroom or more points in some athletic endeavor, and I didn't know how to go about it. I wanted to be successful in whatever I was doing, as I know you do, but I don't necessarily agree with what Mr. Webster says in discussing success when he, in one way or another, explains it as the accumulation of material possessions or the attainment of a position of power, prestige, something of that sort. Those are worthy accomplishments, but I didn't necessarily feel that they were indicative of true success, and I wanted to come up with something else. And I thought about it, and I remember what my father had tried to teach me years ago when I was in grade school, through one ear and out the other for the most part, but somewhere in the hidden recesses of the mind, it stuck. And he tried to teach me and my three brothers that you should never try to be better than someone else. He said, you must always learn from others, because you'll never know a thing that you didn't learn in one way or another from somebody else. And he said, most of all, never cease trying to be the best you can be. That's under your control, and the other isn't. And if you get too concerned and involved and engrossed in the things over which you have no control, it will have an adverse effect on the things over which you have control. And somewhere, I guess, in the hidden recess of the mind, I recalled that when I was trying to coin my own definition of success. And then I also recalled a class that I had when success was discussed. And then I ran across a very simple poem. I love poetry. I dabbled in it a bit. I love all kinds. But a simple verse said, "At God's footstool to confess, a poor soul knelt and bowed his head. I failed," he cried. "The Master said, thou didst thy best." That is success. And from those things, I coined my own definition of success, which is peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. And you're the only one who will know that. But if you do that, you're successful, regardless of what others might think. It's like character and reputation. Your character is what you are, and you're the only one that really knows that. Your reputation is what you're perceived to be, and sometimes the two can be different. So, after coming up with my own definition, and incidentally in the children's book, Inch and Miles, they probably don't understand that too well, and it's changed to happiness in your heart and knowing you tried your best. And that is success, when you have happiness in your heart, knowing that you made the effort, do the best of which you're capable. That's all that's necessary. What you think of yourself is far more important than what others might think of you, because you know your true self. But that, excuse me, but that definition didn't seem to be serving the purpose for which I had hoped. And I tried to analyze it and determine why, and I eventually came to the conclusion it's because it was just a definition. Something rather abject. I thought if you could come up with something that you could see, it might be more meaningful and more helpful to those under my supervision. And there again, I got help from something else that I'd seen years before, called a ladder of achievement. Somebody had taken a ladder with 5 rungs in the ladder, and they had named each rung of the ladder some particular trait or characteristic that this individual felt was necessary to get to the top of the ladder, which we'd all like to get. We might disagree on what we consider the top of the ladder to be, but we'd all like to get there, and there's nothing wrong with ambition as long as it's kept under control, of course. So I can't use a ladder, but that gave me an idea, and I started working on the Pyramid of Success, which I worked on for the next 14 years. I completed it when I was teaching at Indiana State University just prior to coming to UCLA in 1948. And I'm not going to go through all those blocks in detail. I'm just going to mention some of them. I may mention them all, but tell you a little more about one or two. The cornerstones of any structure must be sound. The foundation must be sound, and the cornerstones anchor the foundation. And the first 2 blocks I chose for this mythical structure are the cornerstones: industriousness and enthusiasm. I never changed. I had a lot of ideas through the years, but I never changed the cornerstones. Industrious. There's no substitute for work. Too often we're looking for the easy way. We're looking for the trick. We're looking for the shortcut. And we might get by for a while, but in so doing, we're not developing the talents that lie within us. There's no substitute. A great sports writer once said, you wonder how they do it. You look to see the knack. You watch the foot in action, or the shoulder, or the back. But when you spot the answer where the higher glamours lurk, you'll find in moving higher up the laurel-covered spire that the most of it is practice and the rest of it is work. And I believe that's true. The other cornerstone, enthusiasm. You have to enjoy what you're doing. I hope all of you, in whatever profession you have, enjoy it. I hope you're enthusiastic about it. It's a people-oriented world, and we're with others. And to stimulate others and those around you, you must be enthusiastic. You can't force yourself to work to the best of your ability and reach your own particular level of competency unless you enjoy it. You may do well because you're gifted, but you're not truly successful until you come close to doing what you're capable of doing. Between those cornerstones forming the foundation, I wanted blocks that were strong, so I included others. I chose 3: friendship, loyalty, and cooperation. Friendship, work at it. Friendship's like marriage. It's two-sided. Both sides must work at it. It isn't friendship when someone's doing something nice for you. That's a nice person. It's friendship when you do for each other. You must have loyalty. You must have someone to whom you must be loyal in something. Someone to whom and something to which you must be loyal to reach your own or come close to your own particular level of competency. And then we certainly must be able to be considerate of others. Consideration for others is extremely important. And cooperation demands that you be consideration for others. We need it so much in this troubled world of ours today. We need it heads of nation throughout the troubled world, but we need it right down to the family, right up through every area of our lives. We need cooperation. The next block next tier, I had 4 blocks: self-control, alertness, initiative, and intentness. You must maintain self-control regardless of what you're doing. I know we have golfers out here. I'm sure that there are golfers here there. And I'm also positive that if you lose your self-control on the tee, that the ball's going to be even further out to the right or left than it would normally be for most of you. I'm sure for not many it's going to be very straight anyway. But if you lose your self-control, but more importantly, suppose it's disciplining someone under your supervision, like your children at home who cry out for discipline. Discipline, not punishment. You did something to help to prevent. That's the reason. Remember why you do it. You can't antagonize and hope to get productive, positive results. So you must maintain self-control, whether it's making a mental decision or performing a physical act. And you must be alert and alive, because there's something going on around about us all the time from which we can learn if we don't get lost in our own narrow tunnel vision, in our own egos, which we all have to some extent, but we must keep them under control. Abraham Lincoln, a great American, one of the greatest of all, said he never met a person in his life from whom he did not learn something. And we must do that. We must all be looking, learning. Of course, he said most of the time it was something not to do. Well, that's learning just the same, but we ought to be alert and alive. Then we must have initiative. Don't be afraid to fail. We're all imperfect and we're going to fail on occasions. But the greatest failure of all is failure to act when action is necessary. You must act with self-control. You must use the information that you acquired in the past in regard to the situation that requires action. But you must act, knowing quite well on occasions you will fail. And then you must have intentness. You must be intent on reaching realistic objectives. Don't let obstacles deter you. They may make you change your method or something. You may have to start over. You may have to go around, over, under. But don't quit. That just makes you stronger. We get stronger through adversity. Someone said, when I look back, it seems to me all the grief that had to be left me when the pain was over, stronger than I was before. We get stronger through adversity. We shouldn't avoid it. It's going to make us stronger. And the next tier, I have 3 blocks. They are condition, skill, and team spirit. You must be conditioned for whatever you're doing, whether you're a surgeon performing delicate surgery, or whether you're a bricklayer, whether you're a deep-sea diver, whether you're an athlete. You must be conditioned. There's different types of conditioning, but be conditioned for what your particular profession requires. And you can't maintain and retain excellent physical condition unless it is preceded by mental and moral conditioning. And it's so important for you being able to reach your own particular level of competency. And then you must have the skills. You must be able to do things. And that's not enough. You must be able to do them quickly, or you might not get to do them at all. I know there are a lot of you out here with the experience on these freeways in Southern California, and you may know what to do on occasions, but if you don't do it quickly, you're not going to be around very long. It's nothing different than some of the basketball players that I had that were great shooters, but they weren't quick and couldn't get any shots, and they didn't help us any. But we had some others that were very quick and get all sorts of shots, but they couldn't shoot. And they didn't help us either. You have to be able to do things not only properly, but quickly. And then you must be imbued with team spirit. And that's consideration for others. That's an eagerness, not a willingness, but an eagerness to lose oneself in the group for the welfare of the group. If we're just willing to do something, we really don't want to, but it's a thing to do. It's a nice thing to do, so we do it, but our heart isn't in it. So we won't be doing our best at all, but we're eager to do something. Oh, yes, we're going to do our very best. So we need that. We need that through this troubled world, I think, more than any place else. Just more consideration for others, concern for others is so important. Then the next, right above those 3, I have 2 blocks, poise and confidence. Confidence you must have, and you can't have it unless you're prepared. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So you must have confidence in yourself if you expect others to have confidence in you. And you must have poise. Poise, I like to make up definitions, as you might have gathered. And poise to me is just being yourself. Just being yourself. Not acting, not pretending, not trying to be something you're not. You're just yourself. And that, therefore, you're able to function your own particular level of competency, whatever that might be. And it is so important. Now, to have poise and confidence, though, as I say, you must be prepared. And to have them, you've got to have the blocks below. You have to be industrious, and you have to be enthusiastic, and you have to be loyal, and you have to be cooperative, and you have to be friendly, and you have to maintain self-control, and you have to be alert and alive and observing constantly, and you have to have initiative and be ready to act, not be afraid to fail, and you have to be intent or determined or persistent, and you have to be in condition, you have to have the skills, and you have to be imbued with consideration for others, and then you'll have poise and competence. Be real. It won't be the whistling in the dark type, and they will make you competitive. They'll make you enjoy it when it's difficult. There's great fun in being involved in a difficult situation. That's fun. There's no great fun in doing the very easy things that anybody else could do, and yet in our daily lives, almost everything you and I do, anybody else could do in most things. And whatever we're doing, it should be done to our very best of our ability. But there's no joy in doing those easy things. There's joy in doing the most difficult things. Someone said, let's see, beyond the winning and the goal, beyond the glory and the fame, he feels the flame within his soul, born of the spirit of the game. And where the barriers may wait, built up by the opposing gods, he finds a thrill in bucking fate and riding down the endless odds. Where others wither in the fire, all fall below some raw mishap. Where others lag behind or tire and break beneath the handicap, he finds a new and deeper thrill to take him on the uphill spin, because the test is greater still and something he can revel in. The great competitor enjoys it when it's difficult. Those are the blocks that make up this so-called mythical pyramid, but from the top block, competitive greatness, leading up to the apex, on one side is patience, and the other side is faith. You must have patience. Good things take time and should. We don't try to change things too quickly. Good things take time. All change isn't progress, you know, but we must remember there is no progress without change. As we get older, we must remember that. But we must have patience, and we must have faith. We must believe. We must believe that things are going to turn out as they should. That might not be just the way we want them to, but as they should, providing we do what we should to help that become reality. So those are the things that make up the pyramid, in sort of a short version of talking about them. I'm going to tell you something else about him. Ex-Major League Baseball umpire. We have many baseball fans in here. I hope so. Great game. Yes, it is. My favorite game. Baseball's great. And there was a Major League Baseball umpire by the name of George Moriarty. Now, if you that know something about it will probably understand this. He spelled Moriarty with only one I. And you'd be surprised how big league baseball players notice little things like that. And he was often told that even though there was only one I in his name, that was one more than he had in his head. But he wrote something, and he did something what I tried to do in this pyramid, I think. He called it the road ahead or the road behind. He said, sometimes I think the fates must grin as we denounce them and insist the only reason we can't win is the fates themselves have missed. Yet there lives on the ancient claim, we win or lose within ourselves. The shining trophies on our shelves can never win tomorrow's game. You and I know deeper down there's always a chance to win the crown. But when we fail to give our best, we simply haven't met the test of giving all and saving none until the game is really won, of showing what is meant by grit, of fighting on when others quit, of playing through, not letting up. It's bearing down that wins the cup, of dreaming there's a goal ahead, of hoping when our dreams are dead, of praying when our hopes have fled, yet losing, not afraid to fall if gamely we have given all. For who can ask more of a man than giving all within his span? Giving all it seems to me, is not so far from victory. And so the fates are seldom wrong, no matter how they twist and wind. It's you and I who make our fates. We open up or close the gates on the road ahead or the road behind. And I think he's trying to say in there what I was trying to do in the pyramid, just trying to get you to make the most that you have, not try to give 110% because there's no such thing. It's just trying to get as close to perfection as possible. But there's no perfection, but try to get as close to it. And remember, there's no such thing as an overachiever, although some people, you hear them referred to it. When Bill Walton tells me some player's an overachiever, how ridiculous. No one ever did more than they're capable of doing. We're all underachievers to different degrees, however. That is true. Well, I think I've rattled on enough now. Let's go on with the program.
Leon asked me to remind all of you that the new books that have just been published, one for children, one for adults, the money profits go to the library, so they're in the back if you'd like to buy one. And we invite you to come up now and ask some questions of Coach, anything that's on your mind. Just introduce yourself and fire away. Come on.
Good afternoon, Coach Wooden.
Good afternoon.
Coach Wood. My name is Herbert Molano, UCLA class of 75. You've always been my coach. I've loved reading your books. They have been a big influence for me, and I hope that now they're a great influence for my kids as well. Here's my question. We find in Glendale oftentimes too much anger and confrontation. I was wondering what you can give our young people, and perhaps many of our adults here, your recommendations with regard to how to reduce anger and confrontation.
We got out of UCLA the same year in 75. I graduated in 75 too. It took me a little longer than you. I was there 27 years. To control your emotions, whatever it might be, it's not easy. You have to work on it. Don't depend on somebody else to do something that you're going to have to do for yourself. But you can learn from others. Don't be taken in by what other people might say or what people might think or what might happen to you. As Dad said, if you get too engrossed over the things of which you have no control, it's going to have an adverse effect on things you have control. So try to maintain your own self-control. Just work on that, on controlling your own emotions, and you won't take off like Bradley did the other day for the Los Angeles Dodgers. You got to work at it.
Thank you.
Hello, Coach. My name is Mike Patatian. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the college game today when so many young high school seniors are going straight to the pros? And do you think that's creating parity in the college game? And what are your thoughts on that?
I think in the vast majority of cases, it's a terrible mistake for a youngster to go into pro early. He's missing several years of the most wonderful years of his life, association with others near his own age at a very important age time in their own lives. They're thrown in with others that lifestyle is quite different. They're older, and they're suddenly come into an awful lot of money, which none of them probably have had up till that time. They're not mature enough to know how to handle such things. Therefore, I think in the vast majority it is a mistake. I will not say it's a mistake in every case, but I definitely feel it is a mistake a vast majority of the time.
Do you think something should be done to have like a NFL-style 3-year minimum requirement? A student has to be 3 years removed from high school?
At one time they did have the NBA, for example, could not sign a player until his high school year had graduated. And the NBA liked that, and everybody liked it as far as I know. except an individual here and there. But they must take into court, and they can't do that. It's illegal to do that, and so there's no law that can prevent them from doing that. So, yes, it would be very good if that were true, and I think they'd all like it at every level. If the colleges would like it, certainly, I think the pros themselves would like it very much. I know they will. I've talked to a lot of them. You're very welcome. Now stand a little farther away. That sort of rings.
Coach Wood, my name is Grant Hosford, and I just want to say thank you. First of all, my father was my favorite coach growing up, and his favorite books on coaching were your books. So thank you for that. And I wondered if you could talk about working with very young children. The pyramid's a little bit overwhelming for, say, a 5-6-year-old. Are there one or two that you would single out as the most important in your mind early on?
I'm glad you asked that question. You know, parenting is the most important profession in the world, and it's so important when they're younger, about the age that you're talking about. Now, I think that's covered pretty well in the new book, Inch and Miles. Let them get in the internet. Pictures, the illustrator did a wonderful job, and that attracts attention to some degree for youngsters, and I found it from older people too. For my daughter, for example, she's a little over 5 or 6, and she felt that after the Inch and Miles came out, that she began to understand the pyramid a little better than she ever had before. So I think, and I say this very sincerely, from what I've found out already from the acceptance of a lot of people that I know, I believe it would, and I think it would be very good to try to stress some of the things within there, and I think she'll understand a little better.
Thanks, Coach, and I did buy a book already. So.
I just want to check with the audience. Can you hear the question if they can stand off? Well, let's see.
I'll repeat it.
Repeat it. I want to make sure the audience hears it, and if you can't hear, just raise your hand, and we'll figure out a way here. I had one question, though. Someone's afraid to come up and ask you, Coach. A lady asked me to inquire if it's true that you're almost 85 years old.
Steve yells into that, and it just rings. I can't understand a word he says.
I think you heard that question.
He'd stand away a little and talk. I can hear him.
Hi, Coach.
Hi.
I'm Mark Strasberg, and I also happen to teach at UCLA. For the last 30 years or so, I've played basketball 3 nights a week, and that's 12,000 games. And I do have a question. It's a little late in my career, but there are those days when I make 80%, and those days when I make 20%. What's your keys for consistency? What's the secret?
You sure you're not lying when you make 80%? Well, you know, practice, and that was brought out in the 4 laws of learning. The 4th is repetition, but Steve there thinks that there's 8 laws of learning, and it's explanation, demonstration, imitation, and repetition. So you have to practice more and more, and sometimes players miss because they're afraid they're going to miss. Every time you take a shot, feel it's going in. I'll never forget the last year I ever taught. You might remember that. We were playing University of Louisville in the semifinals of the national championship in 1975, and we needed a basket badly. And so I set up a play for Richard Washington to shoot, and he made in the basket, and that enabled us to get through into the championship game. And somebody said, "Why did you have Richard Washington shoot?" And I said, "Because Richard Washington is a good shooter. But that's not enough. I have other good shooters too, but they'd be afraid they'd miss. Richard's not afraid he'd miss. He's a good shooter. If he had missed, it wouldn't bother him at all because he knows you can't make them all." But he had extreme confidence, and there's so much a lot of players I know. I've had players that were great free throw shooters that I never wanted them on the line if the game was on the line. But I've had others that weren't as good that I'd like to have them on the line because I knew that they would come through. So they're different in the personality you've got. There's nothing that takes the place of practice. There's no question about that. And then you must feel confident in things you do. I used to say in free throw shooting, if you miss one, ooh, that's good. That's good because you're an 80% free throw shooter, and that means since you've already missed one, you're going to be a little better than 80% on the rest of them.
Thank you. Do you have any tips for short players?
Yes, I definitely. Oh yes, I have. Take up golf or tennis or something of that sort.
My name is Mark Tajima. I too am a UCLA grad. And my children were raised with your pyramid of success since they could be born. But if my wife were here, she would tell you there's some slow learners who don't even learn from repetition. That being myself. So what advice, if I could convey to her, in terms of not teaching like a type of a team like your championship teams, but slow learners, if you had to look at their attitudes, it was like they had the opposite of your building blocks. Is there a different way in which you would approach teaching children or adults where they're not receptive, they're not industrious, they're the opposite as opposed to those who are receptive?
Everyone is different. We're all different. The good Lord in His infinite wisdom didn't create us alike. We're all different. Thank goodness. Be awfully monotonous if we were. And what works with one will not necessarily work with another. You have to understand that. I think the greatest motivation thing we have is the pat on the back. That's the greatest. Everybody likes to be, feel that pat on the back. It doesn't have to be a physical pat. It can be a nod, a wink, a smile, something in that sort. But there are occasions that some individuals, you have to make the pat a little lower and a little harder. Because there are different situations, but they won't all react the same. So I think you have to study very carefully the youngster involved and determine what will work. And then sometimes it takes a trial and error method to find what will work. I know I've got in one case that I know that two youngsters in the family. One's just a brilliant student, and the other one is not so brilliant. But wonderful personalities both, but they haven't found the key to make the one become the student that the other one is. But just as everybody likable and loved just as much.
Coach Wooden, my name is Michelle Mallory, and I'm a student of ethics, and I wanted to ask you if you thought sport and morality were intrinsically linked, and if they are, is there hope for professional sport and big-time Division I sport?
Sports and morality linked. Well, I've often said that some say sports build character, and I say sports reveal character. But I think with the proper leadership, certainly they can serve as a good morale for others. I think anyone in the public eye, whether it be in politics, acting, sports, whatever it might be, I think they have an innate obligation to conduct themselves in such a manner that will induce those observers, and particularly the younger people, to go along the proper path. But certainly, they with proper leadership, they certainly, as any other group activity, can lead to morality.
Thank you.
Hi, Coach. Jim Turner. I've got like 100 questions, but I'll settle for one. A little closer? Okay. My one question about basketball rules. One of the toughest rules to officiate is charging versus blocking. And I'm wondering if you would favor the change to the NBA rule with the circle so that anything inside the circle is no longer a charge?
I think it's ridiculous. A charge is a charge, whether it's in the circle or out of the circle. I think it's position, but they call it different in different sections of the country. In the Midwest, when I was teaching Midwestern teams, the Big Ten, charging, they do a lot. Out here, that would be called blocking, but it won't be called there. So you have to adjust wherever you're playing to the type of fishing done in that time. But I think that is, as you mentioned, I think probably the most difficult call that you can make, whether it is, are they in time? Did they get squared away? If they're there, then it's charging. If they're not, if they're coming in size or late and getting in there, then it's blocking. But I think it comes down to a matter of judgment, and I'd like one official working for us one time, he made a horrible call down at this end, absolutely horrible call. And as he came back, I said, a horrible call, Lou, and he said, they liked it at the other end. It is very different. I'm a little more concerned right now that the officials start calling traveling, they start carrying the ball. Post play in the pros is wrestling. It's not basketball, it's wrestling. If I want to see wrestling, I'll go to a wrestling match. If I want to see traveling, I'll go to a track meet. If I want to see showmanship, I'll go watch the Globetrotters. I'm more concerned. I think the rules are pretty good right now if they'll just call them the way they are.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Hi, Mr. Wooden. First of all, my name is Mark Gang. First of all, thank you for everything you've given us, not just the championships, but everything. I'm a PE teacher. This happens to be my classroom. You're sitting right where I teach, so it's a privilege to have you here. I want to ask you the difference between coaching and teaching. Do you think there is a difference? And if so, what are the differences between coaching and teaching?
All coaching is teaching. The only difference is in coaching sports, you are teaching them not only from the academic and the emotional, but you're teaching them. You have them in a physical sense. In the academic, no, you have them, academically, mentally, and you have them emotionally, but you don't have them physically. So it makes difference. And you get closer to your athletes. I taught English for years and years before I came to UCLA, and I've been contacted a lot recently by youngsters who, I say youngsters, they're all in their 80s. To me, they are youngsters. They all played for me back in the 30s. But I don't have any of the English students that I had, and I had a lot of English classes, far more English students than I had athletes. And, even though I always taught basketball and baseball and sometimes tennis for years and years. And I hear from the athletes over and over and over through the years, you get closer to them, you establish a rapport that is far more lasting. Now, many of these, of course, I had an English class too, but that's not the reason they're calling. It's because the association, the rapport is established in the athletic field. So you do have a chance to get closer to them, and it's national, I think, just because of that.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Coach Wooden, Brad Collin, my son Ian, went to your camp back at Cal Lutheran about 28 years ago. And, this is the jersey from 28 years ago. I had a question for you. I was wondering if you would also be interested in seeing a picture from then, and if we could recreate that picture. Here's the question that we had first off. What is it about coaching that was fun for you?
Practice. I love practice. Since I retired, the only thing I have truly missed is the daily practice. That's why I established a rapport, lasting rapport with those under my supervision. And I don't miss the games. I don't miss the tournaments. I don't miss the follow-all that you have to go through, attend the various alumni meetings, and hear them tell you up and up again. Now, I don't know anything about basketball, but... and then they tell you what you should be doing. I don't miss that all anymore, but I do miss the daily practices. I love to plan my practices. I love to conduct my practices, and that's the part I miss. Oh, young man. Who's that handsome fellow with that little boy? Huh? You want me to sign that? You're going to get a picture of this all right here together. This is Dad. Well, we're going to get the picture, Dad. Stand up close to me. Okay, good. And remember now when you're playing, don't let your hair get too long because it'll cause perspiration. It'll run down, get in your eyes, it'll run down your arms, and you'll mishandle the ball. So don't let it get too long, you know. Okay?
Hi, my name is Eric Schultz, and my question is, who do you think is a better basketball coach, Larry Brown or Phil Jackson?
Who I think is a better basketball coach, Brown or Jackson? Yes, I do. Yeah, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
I'm Mitchell Schultz, and when do you think was your first success in coaching?
Repeat that.
When was your first success in coaching?
My first success in coaching? Well, I'll tell you. In my own mind, every year was successful. I did my best, I tried my best. But I'll remember the very first year I ever taught, I knew so little. Yeah, it was horrible. But I hope I was a little better each year. I hope I learned a little bit each year. And when I look back and think, if I learned better each year, if I go back 10 years, I must have been pretty stupid then. But there are a lot of people that would feel that I, as a teacher of basketball, was only successful when we won the national championship. That would be like saying that, if you've never been on that'd be like saying that Malone is not a champion because he never played on a championship team, at least until this year. But you can't judge that way. I think success can only be judged individually. I mean true success. Because most people judge it on percentage methods as to whether you won championships or not. And I don't look at it that way, and believe me, I don't. And that's why I came up with the pyramid. And as far as what the public would say, they would say, I was successful when we won our first championship. And after we'd won 9 national championships, and then the year after that we went to the semifinal and lost to the champion in a double overtime, and one of our alumnus said, "What happened? What happened?" After we won the next year, "Well, we did a great job this year. You let us down last year, but we got a great job this year." But you can't worry about those things. You worry about yourself, about what you can do, and always do the best you can, and it won't make any difference what others think. You make the effort and do the best you can, whatever you're doing. You'll have that happiness in your heart.
Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
Coach, let me ask you a quick question. You told a story on the way over here about that early South Bend basketball team and the players on it. And it's a great example of what sports is all about, the different people from different races and all heights. But the team you were telling us about had quite a group of players.
Well, I had never been around Polish people, and when I went to South Bend, it's largely Polish, and I still remember my first year there, my baseball team, my first year at South Bend Central High School. My catcher was Ed Hanaszewski. My first baseman was Zakraki. My second baseman was Poelski. My third baseman was Robleski. My shortstop was Jazeski. My left fielder was Kazarowski. And my right fielder was Jagodinsky. And my center fielder was Rice. I remember him very well. And my top pitcher was Nowicki. And incidentally, Nowicki, he was my top pitcher when I went to South Bend in 1934, and he called me yesterday. And I still think of him as being one of the young people that played for me, and I think I'm 5 years older than he is. And but that's great. And it was difficult at the end of that time, Justin. But one player I could pronounce his name. It was Flowers. Really, it was Fiakuski, but he called himself Flowers. Yes.
Coach Wooden, my name is Kinu Nakano. I have two questions.
Yes.
What is going on with the Lakers? What is wrong? And do you think we'll get the championship? What is their problem? What is your answer?
I think that you ought to ask Mr. Jackson. My asking him would be like the alumni asking me what's wrong. I don't know. I said long ago, before they're into the playoffs, no one is going to beat the Lakers in a 7-game series. You know what? I still think no one's going to beat the Lakers in a 7-game series. Doesn't look very good right now. Doesn't look very good right now. And I wouldn't be surprised under the situation things are going, but the most difficult in teaching sports, it's more difficult. The better material you have, the more difficult it is to get them to listen and play together. It's the most difficult, no matter how nice they are in every respect. The better they get. Everyone wants attention, subconsciously perhaps, but right now and what's happened in this 3-game series, I think you can be fortunate it isn't 3-0 instead of 2-1. But I think now they know they better get together and get the job done, and I somehow think they will.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Garen Steffen, and my question is, who or what inspired you to become a teacher?
What inspired me to become a teacher? I was inspired to become a teacher after my freshman year at Purdue University when I found out that to become a civil engineer, I had to go to civil camp every summer. That's what inspired me to be a teacher. I went to Purdue University to begin with because I wanted to become a civil engineer. I did not know you had to go to civil camp every summer. If high school counseling had been better, I wouldn't have gone to Purdue. I'd have gone to Indiana University, which was just 17 miles from where my sweetheart was, and so I'd have gone to Indiana University instead. But it was the end of my freshman year that I found out that I was going to have to go to civil camp every summer, and there were no athletic scholarships. Had there been athletic scholarships in my day, or if my parents had any financial means to help, I would have ended up becoming a civil engineer because that was my ambition. When I found that out, I just changed to a liberal arts course, majored in English, so I knew at the end of my freshman year at Purdue that I'm going to be a teacher.
Thank you.
That's pretty good inspiration to do it.
Hello, Coach. My name is Dallas Russell, and I'm a teacher of mathematics, but a big fan of your basketball teams throughout the years. Early in the 60s, a player named Kareem, then was Lou Alcindor, came through UCLA. And at that time, the freshmen were not allowed to play on varsity. But every year there was a varsity freshman game. And in the varsity freshman game, the freshmen thumped the varsity. Yet that varsity team went on and won the national championship. So like in your mind, in that particular year, which was the better team? The varsity that went on and won the national championship, or the freshmen that thumped them in the freshman varsity?
Yeah, I don't want you to feel badly about what I'm going to say to you now. But your calculation is a little wrong. The freshmen did beat the varsity with Louis Alcindor and Lucius Allen, Kenny Heights, and then Shackelford. Yes, they did beat the varsity. But the varsity did not go on and win the championship that year. That year, the varsity did not even win the conference. We didn't get into the tournament. And yet I thought we had a good chance. But that year we lost Freddie Goss, a starting guard from the year before, with a serious illness in November. He was in the hospital for over a month, lost over 30 pounds. We lost Edgar Lacey, an all-star forward the year before, who broke a kneecap. And we lost 2 other players on important crucial conference games with the flu and weren't able to make the trip. So we didn't win the championship. However, I know you're a very astute person because you did say you teach mathematics. And at Indiana State University, when I was there, it was also a teacher's college, and every youngster that I had, I advised them, if they have the aptitude for it, teach mathematics. Don't teach English, because in English you've got book reports to read and grade, and you're going to have to do a lot of reading. Your examinations, you can't just have all true, false, and multiple choice. And it's going to take you longer to grade one exam paper in an English class or one composition than you can grade a whole class of math exams. So major in math.
Good afternoon, Coach. My name is Jackie Gregg, and I'm honored to have you here with us today. Thank you. You mentioned earlier the difficulty, or how people enjoy difficulty a lot more. And in this day and age, with instant gratification and people just wanting the excitement, how do you suggest that we deal with the mundane and building up to the exciting parts of life?
And tell the group that again. You tell them. There's some resonance or something that and it maybe just be my hearing.
The excitement and dealing with difficulty every day. How do you tell people to deal with the mundane and not strive for excitement all the time if you can't have it?
How do I deal with the mundane? Oh, everything's mundane. Don't get carried away with anything. Don't get carried away. Consider everything. This is it. Do the best I can of whatever it's doing, whatever it is. Just do the best you can, and don't worry what others may think. Just do the best you can under the situation. Try to always improve it. But in saying mundane, to me, that's kind of looking down. And you don't look down. As Dad said, don't look down to anybody. Don't think you're better than anybody. But don't look down to anybody. But don't think you're better at it. But you are as good as anybody. No better, but you're as good. And just take everything in that light. And just, I know some things over and over gets monotonous. And maybe that you think of that as being mundane. It becomes monotonous. And we'll try to work other things to make it less monotonous. For example, I wanted to close my practices at UCLA every day with a high note. I didn't want them to go home mad or have to practice mad, and I didn't want to go home mad either. And my Nellie didn't want me to come home mad either. In my younger years, it wasn't good for me to go home mad. As I got older, it didn't make any difference. But but you have to change. You can't have the same drill every day to leave on a happy note, but never leave on a bad note. Try to see the upside. Mr. Lincoln, we're about as happy as we make up our mind to be, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. And if we magnified our blessings the way we magnify our disappointments, we'd all be happier. And let's try to look positive and not dwell on the negative.
Hello, Coach. Wow. Hello, Coach Whitten. My name is Savada, and I coach for Inner League. They're high school students, and my question is, how do you keep the players motivated? Because I have playoff games coming up.
How do you keep them motivated? As I mentioned earlier to one of those, they're all different. Sometimes a pat on the back, sometimes lower and harder. But you've got to keep it interesting. You've got to keep things, you have big drills that will be interesting. And so as I mentioned to the young lady before, you can't become too monotonous. And don't let them get down, and don't let them get too high. If we're doing too well, I would be on them a little bit. If we're not doing well, I'm trying to build them up and never getting on them to speak of. Just trying to find out what the difficulties are, why we're not doing better, and see if we can't fix it, whatever it might be. And if we're doing real well, don't let them live in the past. Today is the only day that matters, is one of the points of the 7-point creed that my father gave me when I graduated from grade school, was make each day your masterpiece. Make each day your masterpiece. You can do nothing about yesterday. That's gone. It'll never change. Tomorrow can only be affected by what you do now. Now, today, that's the only important thing. I tried to teach that to my players. One of my players wrote me a poem one time, and he's written me over 100 poems, and he said, Coach, you're a hunter and a seeker, not for silver or for gold, not for treasure or for pleasure, not for anything that's sold. You're a connoisseur of living as you move along life's way with no worries of tomorrow, for you have found today. Today. That's what you have to concentrate on today. Don't let them think of the past, whether it's been good or bad. Concentrate on today and becoming a little better than you were the day before.
Mr. Warden, my name is Edgar. In your book with John Carney, David Robinson says, Coach, thank you for completing your legacy. You have an amazing legacy on the court with 10 national titles, and you also have an amazing legacy off the court. What type of legacy do you want to leave behind? What type of legacy do you want to leave behind?
A legacy I want to leave behind?
What would you like your legacy to be?
I was considerate of others and followed what I tried to say, that the important things are faith, family, and friends. Just that. I hope that I'd live up to that.
Coach Wooden, my name's Steve Ropfogel. One of the things that I think that has made you the success that you are, from just hearing about you and listening to you today, is your high level of ethics and integrity. What do you think it's going to take for us to bring back the importance of ethics and integrity into our culture, in sports, in politics, and just in our life in general?
By never ceasing the effort to try to bring it about. Never ceasing, never give up. And I think it's the responsibility of those in the leadership positions to bring up the younger people. And first of all, as I said earlier, the most important profession in the world is parenting, and parenting will start that out at the youngsters, even before they reach school age, about consideration for others and other things of that sort. I think it takes that, but it takes a wholehearted effort of everybody for it to become reality, and it's not an easy thing. It'll be a long period before it can be, but we must not give up.
Hi, Coach. My name is Jerry Regan, and if it were possible to turn the clock back and you had all the great UCLA players in a locker room and one game to play, who would you start?
Would you really expect me to answer that question?
Coach, I asked you that question. I've heard other people ask you that, and I've heard your answer, but I thought I'd take one more shot.
Well, you made a good effort, and you're going to get the same answer.
And Coach, our last questioner right here.
Hi, Coach.
Hello.
My name is Tony Scatini, and my question is about basketball strategy. And here in Los Angeles in the 50s, a coach, Hansen at Jefferson High School, full-courted pressed the entire game with around 11 to 13 players. My question to you is, would that strategy today possibly work successfully in the college ranks or in the NBA?
Well, the only college coach that I knew that tried that was, what's his name at Loyola? Anybody remember? Somebody help me. Paul Westhead, yes. Yeah, he tried that. And I don't think it can work consistently, no. And to work and I remember Coach Hansen, it was very successful for him. And he alternated teams at a time, and he kept them going all the time. And it did work very successfully for him. I don't think it could work every place, and I think there are certain places it could. I'm asked a similar question about the pressing defense, and I had so much success. Why aren't more people doing that today? And I kind of wonder why they're not. But I can understand why they're not going all out, as Coach Hansen did and as Westhead did. I can understand how, for a whole season, that's going to be pretty tough certainly at the collegiate or professional level. I think you'd have a better chance at the interscholastic, where you must have enough talent. And certainly I think Coach Hansen did have at Jefferson, and they all liked to run, and they did it well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was it worth your breaking up your afternoon?